Hello everyone here in Yerevan, and hello everyone online, wherever you are, in the comfort of your own home. My name is Dr. Ellen Pearlman, and I am an artist, a researcher, an educator, a curator, and a critic in new media. Most recently, I was a Fulbright research scholar in the Department of Mathematics at the University of Warsaw. Before that, I was a research fellow at MIT, and starting in January, I'm probably going to be a research fellow at the Tandon School of Engineering at New York University. So tonight, we're going to go into some pretty shocking material. So before we start, I want to give what in the United States is called a trigger warning, because we're going to be looking at some very difficult things. So I will repeat the trigger warning before I actually show the things. So if anyone doesn't want to look at that, they don't have to. They can just hear it, and they don't have to see the visuals. Tonight we're going to go into an investigation into a lot of very serious and very big topics, which are currently developing. We are at the start, in the beginning, the first quarter of the 21st century of the age of artificial intelligence. And the implications of this are very profound and will reach every area of life as we now know it. I think the other big challenge we're dealing with is the climate emergency. I think these are the two largest issues. It may seem like war is the largest issue, but these issues will continue on for the rest of this century and into it. So I'm going to explain what epigenetic memory is, and I'm going to explain how artificial intelligence and big data relate to it, using my own experiences as an example. So I made two early works which were brainwave operas. One was called Noor and one was called Abo. And Noor was just a brainwave opera in which someone's brainwaves, lifetime, launched databanks of video and audio. And Abo, which I started working on in 2019 and premiered 2 weeks before the pandemic in 2020, was an emotionally intelligent, artificial intelligence brainwave opera. But both of them, without going into details, because this is not about the brainwave operas, were always about World War II. And I was born after World War II. I was in New York. My parents were born in New York. My father did fight in World War II, but I had no experience of it, ever. I was never in a war or in a country that had that experience. So why was I all of a sudden making these operas about characters in World War II? I went, this is really weird, because I thought I'm a contemporary person. I don't care about World War II. And then I discovered something called epigenetic trauma. So what is epigenetic trauma? Epigenetic trauma is trauma that passes through generations, and it changes your genetic structure. It actually changes your rDNA. Some changes can be moved and added, but it's a new field of psychology and psychiatry, and it's real. So this will be the only science image I'm going to show. But this is a picture of rDNA turning on and off, turning switches on and off. And I'm not a scientist, but why I found it so fascinating is because it actually shows that shock and trauma can change your DNA, your rDNA, and that is passed on to your offspring. And that became very interesting for me. So I decided my next piece was going to be about researching epigenetic trauma. Now, the other part of what I'm talking about is machine learning, because machine learning, we call it artificial intelligence, but it's actually machine learning, is going into the world not only of images, but of film. And what this big revolution you've seen with AI and NFTs and auctions and all this stuff is single images. It's not cinematic. And I immediately realized that we were going to make AI cinema, and that was the big change. And AI cinema is a brand new field. It isn't quite ready for prime time yet, and I'm not talking about video games, I'm talking about AI cinema. And that, I got very interested in it. So I'm going to give you a 5-minute crash course in how images are made in AI. You get a lot of images. The images have captions. The captions have scores. This looks like an apple. This doesn't look like an apple. You put in an input. What happens? It says, yes, apple, very much apple, and then it creates an apple, right? It connects text and images. You've all heard of what's called prompt engineering. Prompt engineering says, give me a picture of a green apple. And you get a green apple. Give me a picture of a yellow apple. And you get a yellow apple. The prompt is, apple, green, apple, yellow. So prompt, it's called prompt engineering, where the words you put in to the search are very important, and it's all done mathematically. So I'm going to show you, this was back in 2018, 2019, when I started investigating this. This is a little prompt I put into a commercially available AI image generator, not movie, just image generator, Night Cafe. And the prompt was, the sun is shining, but it's raining outside. That's a pretty simple prompt. This is the image I got back from Night Cafe. The sun's shining, but it's raining. You can see there's a window, there's drops of rain, there's a sunshine. That's what it gave me back, okay? Then a new, stronger, robust data bank came out called DALL-E that was not released to the public, but it came out. Now, if you look at the date, it says January 5th, 2021. That was not very long ago. So, even though it was not allowed to be released to the public, the Russians got a hold of it and made DALL-E, which was the same thing. And here is the prompt. The sun is shining, but it's raining outside. The exact same prompt, generated by DALL-E. Now, if you look, it's misty, it's a forest, it's cloudy, it's very obscure. It's the exact same prompt as the other one. Then what happened is these were called clip models. And a new type of model came out that was what is literally known as a diffusion model. And if you look at this date, it's 12/24/2021, so it's just about January 1st, 2022. It's a little over a year and a half ago. This brand new model came out, and it was called the diffusion model. So here is the first attempt with the diffusion model, And I said the exact same thing. The sun is shining, but outside it's raining. That's how a diffusion model took the exact same words. So I went, this is really weird. Who's putting these images together? How is this happening? And who's pulling the strings? I don't get it. And I'm not a computer scientist, but I'm an artist, and I don't understand why this is happening this way. So I asked these questions. Where is this coming from? Who's deciding? Can they understand my own personal epigenetic, twisted, weird memories? What are my twisted, weird memories? Why am I making these things about World War II? What is my family's ethnic history? I'm American, we don't know anything, we get cut off, we're very different, we like, nothing. And what is AI gonna do about this? So my first question was, where are these images coming from? And I did some research on the early images, and I found there were these image banks that had names. And the image banks, it's like having money in the bank, except you have images in the bank. And these were the names of the image banks, and they had millions and millions of images, mostly scraped from the internet. So I decided to do an early experiment in 2018, 2019, and I worked with some computer science programmers, software developers. And I wanted to use just one word, and the word was queer. Now, in English, queer was actually a British word, and it came from the 18th century. And it meant strange, a little eccentric. So if in Britain, if you would say, he's a queer fellow in the 18th century, that meant he could have been an artist, he could have been a fashion designer, but someone who was a little eccentric. Now, in the 21st century, it has gender and sexual overtones, but it didn't always. So it's just one word, okay? And I fed it into a data bank. And I fed it into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 data banks. And these are the different images I got back from all 6 data banks. And I went, what? Okay, all the images had rainbow color flags. All of them had this person who you couldn't tell if it was a man or a woman. All of them had this either brick or brown background. Some of them had words that didn't make sense or letters. And every person seemed to have short hair, big eyebrows, and some people had glasses. And I went, this is like millions and millions and millions and millions of images and millions of things to draw upon. Why is every image coming back sort of the same? If there are all so many and there are all so many different data banks, what's going on here? This is weird. So then I thought, okay, I'm going to put one other word in here. I'm going to put the word boy and I'm going to put the word girl in English. Then when I got back, was at the top, it's the boy, and you can see there's a bare chest, so it's a boy. Still some of the rainbow flags, that mushy background, and with girl, you get the eyebrows, but you get more lips and a little more pink, right? And you get these letters that make no sense. This is in like 218, 219, okay? And I thought, this is really weird. How about if I do this in Chinese? So I had software developers who were Chinese working with me. And the first thing I did is I put in the exact word, queer boy, in Google Translate and used the queer boy in Chinese to run the image search. And as you can see, the first image is alcohol. Then the Chinese people I knew they said, oh, that's not what we really call it. We have, and then they had this slang word. They said, well, let's put in the slang word. They wrote it out for me in Mandarin. And if you look, the second image is way more sexual. It's again got that sort of androgynous face with the eyebrow or glasses, but it's more sexy with the Chinese slang. Then I did the same thing with queer girl, again the alcohol. So in Chinese, the word queer and boy or girl means out drinking alcohol. I don't know why, that's what came up. And then my Chinese developers put in the slang for queer girl, and if you look, it's super sexualized, right? I'm like, this is like really weird. This is in the earliest days of image processing in AI. I was going, this is so strange. And then I had other software developers from India working with me, who also spoke Hindi and Tamil. Tamil is the language of southern India. So we did the same thing, and we used a different data bag, the COCO one, but the first one came back with nothing, and the second one came up with either a landscape or a piece of English toast muffin. I don't know what it is. They couldn't even process queer or queer boy or queer girl in Tamil. That's the image they brought back, and I went, this is so weird. Then I said, okay, let's do queer boy with a native speaker, queer boy Tamil with a native speaker, queer girl Hindi, and queer girl Tamil with a native speaker. And I found queer girl Tamil was really weird with those faces. Queer girl Hindi looked like two pieces of English muffins, as we call it, or toast. And I'm going, why don't they, in their native language, understand this? What's going on here with image recognition? Why does Hindi or Tamil not even register these concepts? I don't understand. So I started going, where's this all coming from? And how is it all put together? So this is 219, okay? So I found these data sets. I found all the data sets that were making these images. And if you look, some of them say things like Food 101, Stanford Cars, Oxford Pet data set, ImageNet Sketch, Flowers. And I thought, what do these data banks know about Hindi culture or Tamil culture or Chinese culture? They don't know anything, and yet they're the ones putting together the images. I went, this is really weird. Then what happened is, if you look at the date, it's March 31st, 2022. That's last year. A new data bank came out for something called stable diffusion. It was called Lanyon 5B, and this was 5.85 billion clip-filtered image text pairs. Okay, 5.85 billion. Okay, all right, that sounds workable, maybe, maybe not. And then I found out this thing, it's called Lion, L-A-I-O-N, it's pronounced lion. I call it Lanyon, but it's lion. Also has an aesthetic rating. Now we're in the art world. This data bank has aesthetic ratings? What does that mean? Like, and who's making these ratings? We're in the art world. We have curators, we have art historians. Who's making this stuff up? So I decided I had to figure out who was making up these aesthetic ratings. And I found something called the Lion AI Aesthetic predictor. And I went, who's predicting aesthetics? I mean, look at, we have exhibitions, who makes this up? And then I found it, what the aesthetic predictions look like, and I found the actual data set previews. And somebody was rating these. They had a text string of what it was, they understood how large it was, and then they gave its similarity in numerics. So somebody had like actually scored these things. I'm going like, who scored these 5.85 billion images? Who? How did this happen? Okay, so then I thought, wait a minute. I'm American, and America has the most words and images, and the Chinese are trying to also have as many. But if you're not American or you're not Chinese and you're something else, what about everybody else? And all their images and all their history, what happens to it with AI? So then I found out on February 23rd, I had already made The Idea Language is Leaving Me, the title for this, that Facebook Meta was beginning to build an AI model called No Language Left Behind. And I went, okay, Mark Zuckerberg, you stole my title. You know, mine is Language is Leaving, and you were making something called No Language Left Behind, and it's called, that's it. To learn new languages from all over. And I went, it's an arms race. Who's gonna understand this the first, the best, and who's gonna own it? So then they said, okay, like who really scores this thing? And New York Magazine had a cover story on June 19th, 2023, inside the AI factory. How many humans does it take to make text seem human? Millions. People in what we refer to in the United States as third and fourth world countries are the ones who are tagging all these images. English is not their first language. They don't understand a lot of things about the culture they're looking at, and they're also timed. They have to do so many in a minute. So they have to be fast. And do you understand how much mistagging goes on? Because they don't know what they're looking at. So they're like a factory, and they get paid by the piece. It's like sewing cloth, you know? And I went, oh, a lot of them are in Africa. A lot of them are, yeah, the New York Magazine, India and Africa seem to be the places the most. So I thought, now what am I gonna do? Like, what does this all mean? And why should I care? And what does this mean for the future of humanity? So I decided that I had to start with myself because that's all I could do. So I had to visit family grave sites, which for American is very hard to do. I had to look at old memories and pictures, research on the internet. I actually went to Poland. I discovered a museum called the Poland Museum that has 1,000 years of the history of the Jews in what's called, we refer to as the Pale of Lithuania, which is a large area of Eastern Europe. Why did my family leave? They left in 1906. And then I found out about the great pogroms of 1905, which I didn't know existed. It's like, oh, that's why they left. They never talked about it. It was like all of a sudden my family showed up in New York in 1906, and they were just there. It's like they just existed, you know? So one of the things I'm doing, and I just want to put in a little plug, is I have a chapter in a book coming out next year called Trauma-Informed Placemaking, where trauma and place go into memory. And I just want to say I'm thinking about this a lot. about not only epigenetics, but place and trauma, which we're all re-experiencing now with the war in Ukraine. So what I did is I made a little trip. I was in Latvia, and I went to a very small village. A friend brought me to a village called Azapud. And I made a cute little video that's just about 5 minutes. And I made the video from the point of view of my personal epigenetic trauma memories, which were passed to me through my family history. So I'm going to give you the trigger warning now, because it's very graphic, okay? And this is the training data that I'm using moving forward into what I'm doing with AI. So this is the image data I want to use. So let me just start this. Oops. Hold on. This screen kind of went a little weird, so I have to get back to it. Here we go.
My friend and I were in Latvia, driving from Riga to Liepāja. About midway, we entered the quaint village of Azapud, full of small, centuries-old wooden houses and an old stone castle with Livonian order built by the Crusaders. My friend first took me to a yellow stucco and brick building, the Cultural Center. She wanted me to see it. Then we went to a very large structure that was an artist residency. It was called the Serdi Residency. The house had backyard studios with a photo darkroom, ceramic woodworking facilities, and other crafts. The building was so old, it is listed as a UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage Site. The head of the residency, my friend and I all had coffee. I told my host I was an artist from New York City. That is all I told her. She looked distressed and said she had something very important to give me. We'd never met before. I could not imagine what she wanted to give me. She excused herself, got up and left the room. Then she came back and handed me a small publication called Narratives About the Jews of Azapud. She said she worked on it for a year, interviewing people who were still alive and could give testimonies before they died. She wanted to give it to me as a gift. I did not know what she was talking about. We finished our coffee, and my friend and I continued our journey. I put the book away and did not look at it for weeks. Then I read it. It was a collection of memories of people who lived before and during World War II and knowledge of the Jewish community in Azapud. Some of the recollections are personal, and some are snippets they heard from their parents and other adults who were no longer alive. Many of the people who tell these stories are still living, they are old. So now we hear bang bang. Our neighbor hid himself. He was the head of the town council. A woman had an infant pressed to her breast. She wouldn't let go of her baby. He ran up to her and shoved her with the butt of his rifle, shoved her and killed that baby. I saw when they were digging them up years later that one had some kind of little bundle of cramped bones. Years went on. It was 4 years after the war. They started to dig all of them out. That day, Mother told me to graze the cows on that side. One of my cows smells that horrible smell. You see what they did? They put barbed wire around. I saw not just our neighbor there, but some of the other shooters. Two had board next to me drinking. Bottles were scattered around, and naked fat women lying in the bushes. Right there, the old raised edge. Right there, they were digging them out. They poured chlorine over them. Now the whole world stinks. One of my cows was totally crazy. It was a hot day. The pit is open, and they start pulling them out, and the cows are bellowing and running, probably hopped up from the stench of chlorine. They pull them out in pieces. The skulls were already naked. There was also rot. The bones, they were horrible. And then, about the cold, the teeth, I have to tell it to the end. The cows are bellowing, one is hanging over the barbed wire and tore up the milk bags, and they're laughing. And what do I see? In the sun, I can still see one of those naked skulls before my eyes. The gold is gleaming, gold teeth in their mouths. One of the men, right at the edge of the grave, he was eating. It doesn't bother him what he's doing. Wipes his hand like this and grabs. Next to him are these flyers. And he goes over and crunch, crunch, crunch. Give me that bag, he says to the other black dudes. And he breaks out those shiny things from that skull, those teeth.
So that is my training data, those images. And I specifically chose some of them in terms of early cinema and the idea of the golem. I wanted to put that in the movie. So, okay, so now, before I could make a movie, I had to run these images through AI with the words from the movie. So in the early days of CLIP, before Stable Diffusion, here are some of the tests I got, and these are the words I used. You know, infant pressed to her breast, he ran up to her and shoved her with the butt of his rifle. You know, and I was generating these images in AI to see what it would come up with. They pulled them out in pieces. This was you know, how do these image banks render these types of traumatic experiences? And I didn't put I actually just used the phrase, they pulled them out in pieces. That's all I used, and this is what I got back. And then what happened is in the exact moment that AI cinema started becoming available, this is the very first moment AI cinema started existing about a year and a half ago. I made this 9-second test, and this test is from, and he breaks out those shiny things, those teeth. And this is all you could do at that moment in time with AI cinema, was do something like this. Because it didn't exist, nothing else existed. So I'll just play that again. You can see that's what AI gave me in terms of cinema generating this image. And that's all I said. And he breaks out those shiny things, those teeth. I didn't give it any other context. You know? And I didn't give it an image to work off of, just the text. Okay. So then I wanted to go further. So I had to learn, and I'm an artist, to use something called Google Colab and Amazon Web Services, which was rough for me, trust me. That's what it looks like. You see, you're looking at what it looks like. It looks like this. And you know, it was like I was practically in tears. I was watching videos on the internet. I was like, oh my God, how am I gonna do this? And then I decided I had to work with developers because I couldn't do this on my own. It was like, you know, I could die and be reborn, but it wouldn't work. So then I found out that AI worked off visual styles, and the amount of visual styles was unbelievable. So you could say, and he pulls those things out, those teeth in Picasso style, and it would render it in Picasso style. And then I started going, oh my God, now I have 1 million images, or 1 billion images, and now I have an infinite number, or a Kandinsky style, you know, I have an infinite number of styles I can pull from. How am I going to deal with this? So then what happened is I said, I have to keep going. I just have to keep going with this. Remember, this is just about a year ago, a little over a year ago that this was possible. And I made a text called "Our Neighbor Hid Himself." The style was the boy contemplating his own death in a filmic style. And he was the head of the town council, and the boy contemplating his own death, filmic style. And now I'm going to show you that this is how AI renders an image. You are going to actually see how a mathematical algorithm goes out, searches the internet, makes calculations, and brings back an image in like 4 seconds. I'm going to actually show you this. And what you're looking at now is called noise. That's literally the term for it. Wait a second. Let's just have to make, there it goes. This was in the first days of AI cinema. So what it did, and I desaturated the images. I didn't like that, the wild colors, you can see. It goes from noise, and I put in a little bit of a zoom, to an image. And that is all done by mathematical calculations, okay? Which I had to do in Colab. And then I said, this just isn't good enough. Like, I don't like it. So then I said, I just want to compare 7 seconds of my movie and what AI gives me. Let's just see. So I did, and it took me 5 months to do this.
My friend and I were in Latvia driving from Riga to HayArt. About midway, we entered the quaint village of Vasapur, full of small, centuries-old wooden houses and an old stone castle, the Livonian order, built by the Crusaders.
That literally took me 5 months to do, because the technology is so new, you know? And I kind of like what it does with the Livonian order. It gives me the knights and things like that, you see? Okay.
My friend and I were in Latvia driving from Riga to HayArt. About midway, we entered the quaint village of Vasapur, full of small, centuries-old wooden houses and an old stone castle, the Livonian order, built by the Crusaders.
And you notice it showed all those words and letters. That's the way it went in those days. Okay. I had to build the back edge with a team all around the world in order to do that. And then I started getting into AI sound. Yeah, there's AI sound. And I started generating models, which I won't go into now for time, but I started generating models of songs with sounds. And then I said, okay, I need to do more. So I was given a research position in the Department of Mathematics in Poland. And I decided that I wanted to tell my story that I just showed you, that little movie. I wanted to do it in 5 languages. I wanted to do it in English, Yiddish, Chinese, Tamil, and Xhosa. And Xhosa is a language of South Africa. And that I was going to take the original languages and put them into the databanks and see what I came up with. And the only way I could do that was with a super high-end computer. I had a friend in Hong Kong who gave me a private connection to go into their computer. And I started working in Stable Diffusion with my friend in Hong Kong. And I had to break down my movie that I just showed you into 57 scenes of individual JPEGs. I had to render it on the Hong Kong server. And here's a first test. And you know what this is? If you look in the upper right, there's the woman with 2 babies pressed to her breast. You see it? The upper left is the exact same sentence, a woman with 2 babies pressed to her breast. in Yiddish. In the center, it's in Hausa, which is the African language. On the lower right, it's in Tamil. And on the lower left, it's in Chinese. That is the exact same phrase in 5 languages. And that's the exact same image. I used the image to generate it. So then I started thinking, in Yiddish, you say a woman with a baby pressed to her breast and you get back an image of a man. That's kind of weird. Or in Tamil, you say it and you get an image of a Tamil man with a baby. And you say it in Chinese, and it's really hard to see what it was, and you say it in Hausa, and you do get an image of a woman, but no baby. What's going on here? Why are these other language models not understanding what I'm saying and I'm inputting it in their language? Like, that's so weird. So then I had to do a lot of technical things in order to make a little bit of a movie. I had to break those images down, reassemble them. And the thing with AI is it gives you a lot of flicker. So if you don't do anything, this is how AI renders the movie. Like this, right? That's how AI renders an image. This, like, stop, 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 naturally. So then you have to go, okay, I have to smooth it. So you smooth a little bit, and the blending is kind of weird. And you go, that doesn't work, so then you have to smooth it again. And that kind of works better, doesn't it? And just in terms of image blending and flow. So how to understand that in terms of that's how AI renders images. The difference between this one, which is the original, which is how AI renders each individual frame, and the kind of nice flow one, that one just started, which is the in-between one. And you know what this is? This is the thing, the sentence, it was a collection of memories of people who lived before and during World War II and had knowledge of the Jewish community in Azaput, exactly in Chinese, and this is how Chinese renders it. Same thing, in their language. I was going, oh my God, how could they ever understand my traumatic psychological thing, right? So then I decided that I'm going to make a soundtrack, and the soundtrack is going to the movie is going to be controlled by facial muscles. So like if you're in the audience and you're watching this, one of you is going to have sensors on your face, and that's going to control the sound. So I started experimenting with that. That's the other part I haven't gone into, but I'm just saying I'm working on it. And this will be next month. It's going to premiere in the Copernicus Center in Warsaw. This will be the installation. This is the beginning of me trying to lay it out on a timeline, which was really hard. Really hard. This is my first test ever. Okay, it didn't make a lot of sense, but I just wanted to see what it looked like. You know that one, yeah, different ways to lay it out. These are the areas I have to go into, which I'm going into now by next month. I have to convert it, I have to get fast GPUs, I have to pull it all together. But what I want to show you is I want to show you image-to-image generation tests in 4 languages. In other words, that movie I showed you is the training data, the visual movie I showed you. And these are little tiny 7-second snippets. I'm going to show you this as the last slide.
We finished our coffee, and my friend and I continued our journey. I put the book away and did not look at it for weeks. Then I read it. It was a collection of memories of people who lived before It was 4 years after the war, they started to dig all of them out. It was a hot day. The pit is open, and they start pulling them out, and the cows are bellowing and running. The cows are bellowing, and one is hanging over the barbed wire and tore up her milk bags, and they're laughing. And what do I see? Give me that bag, he says to the other black humans, and he breaks out those shiny things from that skull, those teeth.
So that last image is Chinese. You can see the script. And that's how the Chinese language image bank interprets that 1930s image of skulls. And I'm still working. I'm working here on it, and it's going to have a world premiere of this at the Copernicus Arts and Science Center in Poland next month. And it will probably be a world's first for this. This is very breakthrough, very experimental work, dealing with 5 languages and image-to-image translation of those languages and traumatic memory. So that's the presentation, and thank you all around the world, and thank you all for everyone here in Yerevan for coming tonight. Thank you. Yeah, I know this was a lot. If there's no questions, I understand. People sort of are kind of blown away when they see this, and they go like, what? Yeah. Wait, can you use the mic so people online can hear it? Because if it's being broadcast, no one can hear what you're saying.
This microphone.
Yeah.
So do you have any examples of the AI audio, or was it your voice?
Yes, I do have examples of what I'm doing with AI audio. I could show it, you know, if you wanted to see it, with some of the things. It's about 6 minutes, so I didn't.
Maybe part or just.
All right, yeah, the AI audio. If you want to see it, okay, I'll go back. All right. I mean, this was about a year ago, and I'm going to do a lot more with this. Okay, so what I did is there's a program out, you know, called AIVA, and I decided to take a 1930 song called Dark Clouds Racing. It was a song made in 1933 on the eve of Kristallnacht, which is when the Germans bashed all the windows in of the Jewish shopkeepers. It was the beginning of, you know, the beginning of the end. And so I found this beautiful song in Yiddish, which I don't speak. And I decided I was going to let AI render this song in 7 different ways, or a few different ways. And I was going to say, okay, render this horrible song with a tango beat, render it with jazz. You know, what could AI do with this? So first I'm going to show you the AI models before I let you hear the original. So I think this works. It should be a video. If it doesn't, you'll have to forgive me. I don't know if this is going to work here. It's supposed to be a video. Well, it's not working, I'm sorry to say. Like I say, it's just not opening here. Hold on, let me just see. No, it's not going to work, I'm sorry to say. But that's what I did, okay? without showing it. I can show it to you specifically, but you know, I thought it would make the presentation too long for people, and I didn't want to exhaust people. And this isn't about AI sound, although, believe me, I'm all over AI sound as well. So I can show you, I have my computer here, I can show you it on my own computer, okay? I just didn't want to blow people out with too much information, you know?
Did you hear AI cover when Frank Sinatra singing different songs?
Okay, you're talking about, well, the question was, did you hear Frank Sinatra singing different songs? That's very different. That's voice machine learning, and I actually did a project when I was in Warsaw. I did 3 collab projects. One of them worked with voice machine learning in an installation. That's not so hard to do at this point. That's easy to do. It's just, you know, what it is, honestly, is it's pattern recognition and imitation. That's all it is. It's very high-end pattern recognition and sonic note recognition. And it's imitation. It's almost like a ventriloquist in the old days, or puppet.
Imitate the style of the singer and his band. It's not just imitating like rendering the voice. So
It imitates a style, but what is a style? A style is a pattern. All AI is pattern recognition, synthesis, and imitation. Where AI falls down, now I'll say this. So I met Jan LeCun, and for those of you who don't know who Jan LeCun is, he's the head of AI research at Meta Facebook. I met him last year at an event in New York, and I said, Jan, I'm making a movie about AI and epigenetic memory in 5 languages. And to his credit, Jan LeCun immediately, he didn't skip a beat, said, oh, AI doesn't understand epigenetic memory yet, but it will in about 20 years. Because what Jan LeCun is working on, and he's not the only one, is something called vector space. Right now, we're working, because you're in programming, I can talk to you like this. We're working on machine learning neural networks. That's what we work off of. That's old news already. The new news is multi-dimensional vector space. And emotional recognition and memory and all those things that make us incredibly human are beginning to be researched. This is an area I will go into more when I start doing my research, when I'm a research fellow at NYU starting in January. That's what I want to look at more, is memory, vector space, and volumetric filmmaking. Because that to me is really interesting, 3D filmmaking. So that's not ready yet. We don't have the computing power. We don't have the mathematical algorithms. We don't have the structure yet. The structure will be built, and the models are being imagined now by certain computer scientists. And if you look up vector space and emotion recognition, that for me is way out there. And that's why I'm asking this question now about epigenetics and inherited traumatic memory. Because AI is going to be a decision maker for so many things, including mental health, physical health, border migration, law, you know, employment, education, school placement, I mean, you name it, right? That's where we're going with this. And who's making these decisions based on what? Based on what? By who? For what? And I am very active in those areas politically because I do understand, although I can't do it, I understand what's being done. And I understand now is the time in human history, now, when these things are being written. They're being written right now. And once they're written and once they're implemented, you can't tear them apart and redo them. It's just never going to happen. No one's going to rebuild it from the ground up. The whole system is being put into place now. And so that's where we are in terms of human history now. It's now. We are in the beginning of the age of AI, and we're doing it now. And that's why I do these projects, because I use arts practice as a way to really think through these very serious issues. So that's where we're going in the next 20 years. And very few people are working on that, but within 5 years, it will change. Neural nets will change, and you'll start reading all about vector space very soon. So that's what I have to say. You get it. And for those of you who are in software development and AI, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay. All right, thank you. Yeah.
Maybe any questions?
Yeah. No, I know it's too much. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye. I can show you the, there's the little